So we're at the Luna Lounge part with Fulton Berry and Cat Salmon. Did you guys have fun tonight? It was nerve-wracking, but I think we worked out well.
Yeah. You know, I think there's always nerves, especially on a first go at a new project.
Yeah.
And also just wanting to do it right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I always say if you're not nervous about something, you don't care as much as you should. For me, if I'm nervous, that means that I care.
Yeah.
At least
No,
a little bit. Which usually means I care a lot.
You got to hide behind the curtains, so we didn't get to see your
But I was
nervousness.
still nervous.
You're still here.
Still nervous.
Glad you didn't vanish into the wall, become one with the set.
I accidentally dropped a couple of things. I was like, oh no.
When you guys first talked, did the idea come about the curtain or have the interactive? Or is it interactive performance art? Did you guys even talk about that? Like,
It was a problem-solving thing.
Oh, it
because since they're interactive, it didn't make any sense for it to just stay there, because at some point you'd have to see the rest of it, because the whole point is that the things are moving, changing. I mean, originally I was just walking up on stage and flipping it, but that felt really distractive. So same
That's
with
right. Yeah,
just
you were
standing
kind of
there.
next to me.
Yeah, I would
in
just
the dry
show up
rooms, yeah.
next to you. So then the curtain became a thing, and I don't really like being on camera as much. So I was like, yeah, this is
not all
perfect.
artists do.
Yeah.
And then you had the glove part, which was
Yes.
nice.
Yes.
That was a nice
a
part.
finishing touch.
You had one painting one time, but now you have two. Is it in the same scene? Because I saw the doors in the middle and the other doors to the side. So I don't know if both rooms are in the same house. Like, I don't know your setting.
It's about the last apartment I lived in. So there were two rooms side by side, and one of them my roommate lived in and the other one I lived in. We switched rooms at one point, which is also shown in the first panel of each one is like our rooms, and then it switches in the next panel. You can tell by like the kind of like the furniture. I tried to make it more obvious of like what happened in that apartment in terms of just moving mundane things, but also other things that happened.
Right. Now, you guys know I don't make good sound. So when you did I actually wrote it down, da-da-da-da-da-da, but I don't know which part, in the beginning and then in the middle, like how did she knew to switch? Because you did is it called trilling? When you do I don't know.
One of my songs had trills in it. I just don't know if that's the same thing you're thinking of.
Well, there's a lot of layers in your music.
Yeah. Well, I sent Kat sort of like a rough breakdown of the sections of the songs with some timestamps.
Okay.
Partially just to have Kat get used to just the format and the structure of it, and then it was interpreted, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it worked out perfectly. Yeah, it was nice. It was beautiful. It was actually very poetic. And I know you were nervous because you said the fabric of the glove.
Oh, it was so bad. So slippery. I was like, I can't
it
feel
really?
anything. I couldn't feel a single thing.
Oof.
I couldn't even get my hand through the curtain. Like, it was just
I almost
sliding.
can't feel anything at this point. So after a few takes, yeah, your hands start to disappear, and it's like, oh, how's this noise happening?
It was like peeking through the curtain.
It's working. Nice.
But Fulton, your music had so many layers. I don't know what inspired you for these two pieces, or why did you want to be a musician?
I started my love for music when I was 8. When you hear music for the first time, you don't really acknowledge it as an art form. It's just like part of the air, part of the atmosphere. It just happens to make you move a certain way. But when I first started getting into music, I heard Eric Johnson's Cliffs of Dover, which is like this crazy instrumental guitar track. That was the first thing that inspired me, but it was like I had no idea how difficult it was at the time. And then later on, I started listening to more stuff like that. Music with a lot of like virtuosity and melodic changes and genre blending and stuff like that. Like, bands like Rush. Hearing that, it just kind of made sense. Like, oh, music is supposed to be like this. I always feel like when I listen to pop music, it's like it's overly simplified in comparison. Yeah. But that's its own art form too. There's an art in simple stuff too, and that stuff usually has the better production, so it also has its own merit too. But when I was first getting started, I just thought like music has to be like this, so I always just wanted to hear more music like that.
And that's been your genre, because you played two songs similar. It's all instrumental.
Yeah, I was always drawn to like the instrumental side of things, just because it just seemed more adventurous. It seemed to kind of take you places.
You say you practice every day.
I try to. There's a lot of changes in the songs. There's a lot to remember.
Yes.
There's a lot of notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope it sounded like music. When I write songs, I kind of just let it go where it wants to go, and I'll I'll let it sit for a while and I'll come back.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll know, like, that doesn't quite work. When arrangements are quirky, sometimes it'll take a little bit to grow, or sometimes you just know when it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did everything self-taught, so.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you were self-taught.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
So my technique was something I had to just figure out through trial and error.
And Kat, are you self-taught, or did you go to school for art?
I did go to school for art. I almost didn't, and a lot of what I did before and a lot of what I learned before was self-taught, and then halfway through high school I'm like, oh, wait, I don't know what else I want to do, so let's go into art.
And then are you the same way like Kim? Do you practice every day? Or what inspires you? Do you look for other artists?
With what happened with the pandemic and everything, I fell off the art wagon because it was right in the middle of my junior year and then all of my senior year. So art wasn't really, I was just trying to get through it.
Right. And it's difficult. You probably couldn't go to the studio to do your art project.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So that made it hard to stay on the wagon.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to get back onto it because I know that I really enjoy making art. It's just a matter of, like, again, the studio was such a great, like accessibility to a studio is amazing,
Right.
especially with oil paints.
And your painting has different media because you have the painting and then you have the fabric. And then did you sew the pictures?
I embroidered it, which is,
embroidered,
even though I said no more embroidery after that project, it's super accessible. So I'm going back to it.
It doesn't smell.
It doesn't smell.
You don't need olive oil.
No mess. So I'm going to go back to it even though I said I wouldn't. I got other things in the list.
If only we didn't have to work.
I know.
And we can just be creative, right? If only...
I had all the space in the world.
Yes. Well, what is your favorite tool that you would always keep? I think it's easiest for you. Yours, I don't know. Would it be the pick or the guitar or your pencil to songwrite?
Oh, man.
Or your laptop with your music.
It's tough, but I would probably just say if I had to pick one, it had to be the most bare bones, all-purpose thing, just an acoustic guitar. Because one, I don't need a pick for that most times, and at least that's something that can write natural music that I've played.
Yeah. And do you have an artist tool that you would never could live by without, or that you carry around? I think someone had told me a pencil, and they carry a pencil all the time. I don't know what you carry.
If you had to pick just one, I think a pencil would be, because you could just do it on any surface in front of you.
Right.
Because if you had to pick a combo, like a pen and paper, that's two things.
That's two things.
But then if you have the one thing, you could just, everything is your surface, right?
It's very true.
But I don't want to answer for you. What would it actually be?
No, you're good.
Okay. Cool.
But I think it's interesting because you reminded me of, like, the idea of the human element, which is why that question is also tough for me, just because I immediately think back to, there was these life drawing classes that I had, and the most fun class I think I've ever had.
It's like still life or like live people?
Like people,
okay.
yeah, like models, like in front of the class, and my tool would kind of be like some sort of model. If I could take that anywhere, I would. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be a person, but just some ability to have a model in front of me.
Yeah. And then music, where do you get your inspiration?
I think my songs come from a few different areas. So one, I love listening to music.
Yeah.
So I'm as much of a fan as I am a musician. So I write music that kind of wears my influences on my sleeves quite a bit.
Okay.
And I write music that I want to hear. And you can't always just say, oh, I want this band to write more, please make more. I gotta do it myself.
Yeah. Do you guys like working together? Like, have you ever done a thing where music and art combines?
I've never seen it before, let alone done it before.
Yeah.
I don't think. Something like Fantasia is one thing.
Yeah.
But like...
Fantasia with Mickey Mouse?
It's,
Okay.
where it's like classical pieces mixed with cartoons.
Yeah, okay.
That's sort of like art and music.
That's true.
You know, animation, stuff like that. But that's different.
Any other upcoming projects?
Yeah, just getting the rest of the record done and released. It's a conceptual instrumental record. The title of the album is called To the Forefront, and it kind of sounds like the final frontier or something where you don't really know where you're going, but you're going on an adventure anyway. It was loosely based on like this big bang space idea with an alien and inhabiting a planet and having to learn what the concept of art is. That was the original idea. What it wound up turning into was sort of a meta concept of the creation of art itself, or at least the creation of music.
And what about you, Kat? Any new art coming up that we should be looking out for you?
I have this really gigantic green tablecloth canvas.
Ooh.
I really like it, and I wanted to do something with it, but it's just like been just around this whole time. It's existed for a while, and I keep looking at it, and I'm like, eventually something's going on there. Eventually.
Is it true what they say about artists that you have to wait for that it's like a writer's block, and then you have that creativity juice, and you just do it nonstop? Does that happen to you? Like,
yeah. I unrelated to making art, I had one of those with writing like several years ago, and I wrote multiple different like individual stories and even like a series. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, I'm never writing again.
Really? Because you did it?
Because I did it. Yeah, and there was like a year of like just time after time just going for it. Wow. And then all of a sudden I'm like, yep, all right. I've done all the writing I could do for the rest of my life. That's it.
It won't be the same for your art, though. No, I'm sure you'll be nonstop
no.
with your art.
Hopefully not.
Yes.
Hopefully not.
And then embroidery art, you think you can go bigger? Because I know it's tough with embroidery. Are you going to stay in that size? It's a nice size.
Yeah, the green canvas was supposed to be like a giant amalgamation of different embroidery and different embroidery techniques and different layers. And I was originally going to make it some sort of like general scribble mess, and then I was like, oh, it should be a portrait. I'm like, no, that seems kind of dumb. So I I struggled with it, and I still haven't figured something out yet.
So you're not like Leonardo da Vinci, where he like started a project, never finished, and another project doesn't finish. You just have to wait for the idea. No, I don't like leaving things unfinished. I'm very much like, if it doesn't immediately come to mind and excite me, I'm not doing it. It has to be an immediate thing, which is why like art projects always stresses me out in school, because they would assign it. They'd be like, all right, you got to do this piece specifically, and I'm like, my brain is not functioning right now.
Not functioning with this. Nope. I don't like this assignment.
So is there anything that you guys do to kind of pump your creative juices?
I think we all have our rituals, like, and sometimes it's things that you're not even aware that you're doing.
Right.
Like, before I started any of these songs, I was adjusting my sleeve. Like, there's these nervous twitches I think we all have that, like, this isn't going to do anything to the song. But it's something that at the time I needed to do to get focus. Maybe you have to work with a cup of coffee. Like, everyone's got their obsessive compulsions. I liked your question. You just asked Kat, though, like, what was it? Like, the spark of inspiration and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The thing that most musicians, especially guitar players, are plagued with is they come up with a riff, they don't record it, and they're just so sure that they're going to remember it.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, it's gone. It's like, what? I just did this. I had a masterpiece, and now it's gone.
Yeah.
So, lesson learned, if you have something that's good, get it down.
Yeah. Kat, do you have a ritual?
I can't stand working in mess, which is why I have a hard time working with messier materials.
Yeah.
But other than that, I love cleaning.
The material, no, but the materials though, it's like.
Yeah.
So you don't have a typical artist studio, like, you know, I envision an artist studio where there's like paint everywhere, there's unfinished paintings. No, yeah. That's not you.
I can't do that.
Wow.
I just if I put my hand down on a counter and something comes off on my hand, some oil paint, it drives me nuts. Because then I'm going to get that on everything. I've only done art, especially recently, when I feel like a very strong emotion, like anger or something like that. I've only done artwork with that so far. Because it feels like that's the best way for me to get it out. If I'm not feeling much of anything, then I'm not really going to... I don't know. I can't create art around that.
Right.
I mean, I'd like to go back to the idea of memory and, you know, recreating it and
of memories that you had.
Yes, yeah. Like I that's the thing that interests me the most, because I think I'm constantly chasing the like memories, especially with being someone who grew up half here and half in Portugal.
Okay.
There's a lot of images I have in my head of like places I've been, but they're fuzzy because they were when I was a child. So it's like, oh, I remember this like doorway of this like church or something like that, or this
wild.
person's house. Yeah, I made some blind paintings a little while ago of different locations, and I'd paint them without looking because I was trying to recreate what it kind of looks like in my mind's eye. And then I'd go to my parents and be like, all right, do you remember where this location is? And can we go there?
And do they recognize
Does this trigger anything?
Actually, there was one I did go to. Okay. It was up on a mountaintop, and it was an old abandoned church that my grandfather like owns the priest's house that used to be in that church. It's a really cool church. It's from 1775, actually.
17?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I've never been to Portugal. It's on my bucket list.
Oh, it's so pretty.
But is there a specific time where art is more comfortable to do? Like, not that like inspiration necessarily comes, but just to work on it. Because for me, it's at night.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a night owl.
Yeah, for some reason,
And I'm not even an artist.
I get way too tired during the day. I don't understand why that is. Like, I could run and fuel on coffee and eat the most healthy food, but I'll still be tired during the day. But once I sit down, once the sun goes down and I have something in front of me that I'm working on, I just wake up.
You just wake
And
up.
like 3, 4, 5 hours can go by and I won't notice. I won't feel tired. It's crazy. Yeah, but at night it's for me. I don't know if it's the thing for you.
For me, it's right before I gotta go do something. Like,
Really?
if in the morning, I'm like, oh, I gotta go to work. Oh, well, I got this thing going on. I have this idea in my head.
Oh.
'Cause
Interesting.
I'm both a night
Is
owl
it almost
and
like
a
guilt
morning
trip you into
person.
doing it? It's
Yes.
like, you gotta do it now.
Exactly. I'm like, it's so late. I gotta go to bed. I gotta be up early in the morning. But you know, it'd be a great idea. Or it'd be like in
That's
the middle,
interesting.
or like doing a lunch break or something.
Yeah.
Like, oh wait, that's a great idea. But if I'm doing any sort of artwork for any reason that takes longer than 5 seconds to do, I will sit there for 7 hours straight. No problem, no eating, no drinking, no nothing. Just 7 hours straight until it's at a point where I'm like, yes, this is what I was envisioning.
Wow.
Even if it's not done. But I have to sit down, I have to definitely sit down and do it. That's when I'm like making art.
Yeah,
you know, like committing.
No,
time
that's
to it.
true. What attracted you to do Spaceship Studios?
I was hoping like if I put some of my artwork out there and be in the realm and nearby also other creative people in any facet of what they're doing, will that make me do art? Will that make me do something? Will that motivate me to continue doing?
Oh, I like that.
things?
Like fostering consistency.
Yeah, like something to be like,
Fostering consistency.
I'm watching what other people are doing with their time. Like, why can't I do that? You know?
And sometimes you do need other people to motivate.
True.
Like, I know through this process, I was motivated to accelerate my process a little more. And as much as like that freaks me out and takes me out of my comfort zone, it was needed. So
Right.
You're right. Being around creative people kind of motivate and encourage you. And it is like a support group, I guess.
Right.
Because, you know, when you go in the real world, there's so many people that are jealous or envy or try to take you down, and you want to be with people that want to build you up.
Exactly.
I felt like we encouraged each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
it's just always great to see how people from different art backgrounds interpret something. Like how like a painter or visual artist can interpret music and vice versa. Because me interpreting a painting, it's not really the language that I speak, but I know I have things to say about it.
Right.
I know I understand the process, but we're just coming at it from different angles. But it's there. Like music is, I don't know. It's like it's not a physical thing. It's just like atmosphere. It's just like, whereas art, it's like tangible. You can look at you look at it, you can feel it. Textures, the colors, the size of it. The forms are different, but it still comes from the same place.
Do you ever get surprised when people interpret your work of art or music? Yeah?
Oh, you should have seen some of the blind paintings and blind contours. People were like, I'm seeing a cat. And I'm like, that is a church doorway. That is not a cat. But I like your style.
You know, I'm just glad that someone gets something out of it, whether it's different than my perspective. Like, once you release music out to the public, you don't own it anymore.
Yeah.
It's out of your hands. Like, people put their own meaning on stuff.
Because, you know, if you look back at artists, musicians, they always try to have this social connection or what they want to leave in the world. What do you want to be remembered by?
The first thing I thought of was just, I want to create music that inspires other musicians. Because that's what happened with me.
Yeah.
I don't think that was their intention or their sort of life's MO. But whatever they did that inspired me sure worked.
Yeah.
And it made me work really hard at it. So I hope that if anyone hears my music, it inspires them to pick up, you know, even if it's different than the guitar. I don't care if they hear it and they like the drum parts that I write. Hey, they pick up a pair of drumsticks.
Yeah.
Cool. But it would be pretty cool if they wanted to learn to play guitar too.
That would be cool.
If I had some way of shaping their future, that'd be an honor, even if it's someone I never meet.
Yeah. That's a nice one.
For me, I don't know. I just immediately memory and the importance of memory comes to mind. Because again, I'm always chasing that feeling of being a child in two different countries and how magical it felt to be. Like even now, like the idea of going back is, it's like something else, and I daydream about it all the time. I'm searching for like the smell and stuff. I wish that there was a way to tangibly like have memory with you. That would be so nice. Because I'll gather things that are scent wise that remind me of things or like visually.
I think that's why I look at old photos all the time.
Old photos. I'm always asking my grandmother for old photos.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being like first the pioneers of this season of Spaceship Studios and Lunar Line. You guys really set the tone. I think the next artist and musician will have a hard time to follow.